Hare Krishna, we continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, the opulence of the Absolute. We are reading the purport by His Divine Grace to text 4 and 5. So we'll quickly read the translation. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. Krishna is saying all the qualities are created by him. There's nothing that is not created by Krishna. Control of the senses means that the senses should not be used for unnecessary personal enjoyment. There is no prohibition against meeting the proper needs of the senses, but unnecessary sense enjoyment is detrimental for spiritual advancement. So Srila Prabhupada would say sense gratification is like salt. Salt is needed. So certain amount of sense gratification is needed, but use it sparingly. Hmm. The unnecessary sense enjoyment is detrimental for spiritual advancement. The needs of the senses have to be met. We are inside the body after all. The senses have their what do you say? Their needs after all, But overdoing it, unnecessary, that is what is uh, that we are asked to refrain from. Therefore, the senses should be restrained from unnecessary use. Similarly, one should restrain the mind from unnecessary thoughts. That is called shama. So, senses, Prabhupada would say that we could control the senses by engaging the senses in the service of Krishna. That is the easiest way to control the senses. Eyes for seeing the beautiful deity of Krishna or reading from the scriptures like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, our hands in worshipping the deity, cleaning the temple, mind in always thinking of Krishna, tongue in chanting Hare Krishna, tasting Krishna Prasad, ears in hearing about Krishna. And in this way, we can control our senses. So, and mind, control the mind from unnecessary thoughts is called shama. One should not spend one's time pondering over earning money. That is a misuse of thinking power. The mind should be used to understand the prime necessity of human beings, and that should be presented authoritatively. So the proper use of mind that that we have been given in this human life, this mind, it's only in this human life that we can try to understand the absolute truth. And so we should engage it in that self, in that. Now, we may say, how can I not think of thinking money? I have to maintain myself. Sure, we have our bodily needs, we have our responsibilities, we do that, but at the same time, engage the mind in thinking of Krishna, engage the mind in trying to understand the absolute truth, engage the mind in trying to understand Krishna's words of what he's saying in the Bhagavad Gita, and then present this to the others. Understand the prime necessity of human beings. We read yesterday that all our suffering is because we have forgotten Krishna. And each and every living entity is suffering. It's not that only someone is suffering and the other is not. It does not mean if somebody is very materially has everything, a great wealth, great knowledge, great education, um, great social standing, that they are not suffering. No, at every moment, every living entity in this material world is subject to three types of suffering. Either one of the three types: suffering of the body or mind, or suffering by the outside other living entities, or suffering by natural calamities. So each and every living entity is suffering. And how to mitigate that suffering? remembrance of Krishna, explaining or presenting them that we each of us have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. The power of thought should be developed in association with persons who are authorities in the scriptures, saintly persons, and spiritual masters, and those whose thinking is highly developed. So, who should we hear from? Hearing should be, we should hear from the authorities of the scriptures. The spiritual knowledge should be heard from the authority. We should not hear spiritual knowledge from anyone and everyone who thinks they are speaking about spirituality, because they may be speaking something completely which is a figment of somebody's imagination, not based in reality. So we should hear, power of thought should be developed in association with persons who are authorities in the scriptures, saintly persons and spiritual masters, and those whose thinking is highly developed. This is how we can improve our mind, our thinking capacity. Association with devotees, association with authorities in spiritual life. Sukha, pleasure or happiness should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna says in the 9th chapter, devotional service is happily performed, blissfully performed. He says that devotional service is happily performed. So how can we always be happy? By uh, engaging in activities which are favorable to remember Krishna, favorable for Krishna consciousness. One should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of the spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So, happiness should be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. We may, at first, we may not realize it. At first, we may say, oh, it's not very, I don't feel very happy to hear and read about Krishna. It's such an effort. But we continue understanding that this is going to give us the highest happiness. We may not experience it immediately, but it will come. It will come. We simply have to continue. And similarly, that which is painful or which causes distress is that which is unfavorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Anything favorable for the development of Krishna consciousness should be accepted, and anything unfavorable should be rejected. So this is how we can choose how how uh, to accept or reject something. This is favorable for my Krishna consciousness. This is unfavorable for my Krishna consciousness. Um, and seeing everything in relation to Krishna, connecting every situation, every circumstance, seeing it in relation to Krishna. So why is it said that only Krishna consciousness can bring happiness? Because that's what we have been reading also, that our miseries is because we are thinking we are the body. As soon as we get out of this bodily concept, there is no misery. So the easiest way to get out of it is by cultivating Krishna consciousness, by appealing to Krishna. And that is our real position. That is the eternal position of every living entity, that we have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. So when we are cultivating Krishna consciousness, we are cultivating that relationship that we have with Krishna. In our material relationships also, we put in time, effort, energy, because we have loving relationships. So we give ourselves in that relationships. Similarly, we have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna, and we need to revive that relationship. And the easiest way to revive it is by hearing about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Bhava, birth, should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there is neither birth nor death. that we have discussed in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So when we say birth, we're celebrating birthday. Every year we celebrate birthday. But that birthday is the birth of the body, not of the soul. The soul, we never die. We are never born. So if we are never born, how can we die? But when we say, oh, we are never born, what does it mean we are never born? In our material experience, everything is born if it's living, and everything dies. Everything has a manufacture date and expiry date. But that is material. On the spiritual platform, everything exists eternally. Everyone exists eternally, rather, because we are all conscious. The spirit soul is conscious, is an individual uh, conscious being. Birth and death apply to one's embodiment in the material world. Fear is due to worrying about the future. So, death, when we say death, death means giving up this body. Death is not with the soul. It's not that once we leave the body, we are dead, we are no more. Okay, now I don't exist anymore. No, the soul exists eternally. The soul never dies. Krishna explains about this in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. He's explaining the position of the soul very clearly. And then why are we fearful? Why are we fearful? Because we don't know what's happening in the future. What's coming for me? What's coming up next? I don't know. And that's what causes our fear, worrying about the future. A person in Krishna consciousness has no fear because by his activities, he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge of what their next life holds. So they are therefore in constant anxiety. So a devotee, he knows he's going back home, back to Godhead. So he's not fearful. His future is bright. He's going back home. He does not need to be in the material world anymore, taking on different bodies. So that's why we are asked to immediately take up this Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the original consciousness of every living entity. It's the natural position of every living entity. If we want to get free from anxiety, then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated always in Krishna consciousness. In that way, we will be free from all fear. So we each of us have different types of fear. Someone may be fearful of a certain thing, but to another person, oh, this is not a cause of fear for me, but this is a great cause. We may like laugh at each other. Oh, why you're fearful of this? No, no, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. But I may have some other fears. So each of us has a fear. And how to get out of that fear, how to get out of that anxiety? Try to understand Krishna. The best course of the best anti-anxious anecdote is uh, understand Krishna. Understand Krishna, be situated in Krishna consciousness, and in that way we will be we will be free from all fear. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, Text 37, it is stated, Bhayam dvityabhini veshatah syat. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material body, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, have nothing to fear. The future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Abhayam, fearlessness, is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness. So the more we come closer to Krishna, to that degree our fear will be reduced. We are all very fearful. There are so many different types of fears we are holding on to. But the more we surrender to Krishna, the more we take shelter to Krishna, to that degree, we can be free of the fear. The pure devotee, he's not at all fearful. He's fearless. Abhay Charanaravindam. That's our Srila Prabhupada's name. Abhay Charan. Fearless at the lotus feet of the Lord. Fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. So one who's Krishna conscious is fearless. He's completely understood his real position, constitutional position. Did anyone want to add or comment?
No.
So, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for listening and joining in today.